We're delighted to welcome Farmstrong to present this webinar and especially Sam Whitelock. So thanks very much for taking the time out and I'm going to hand it over to you, Sam.
Awesome little segue in there. It's great to have a few people on the call, and I'm sure there'll be some good questions come through. But a bit about myself first. I'm one of four boys. I grew up in the Manawatu, so grew up the bottom of the farm's actually almost in Opiki. So went to Opiki school, which I always remember going past the sign saying Opiki is the #1 spud growing or potato growing area in New Zealand. I'm sure there's a bit of debate, hotly discussed and argued within your crew around if that still is the case. But I know what it's like. I went to school with kids that their parents were potato farmers or, involved in the industry somewhere. So myself, I grew up on a dairy farm and with three brothers, there's only 5 years between all four of us. So it was pretty full-on household. We were, I think the nice way to say it is we're a little bit rough around the edges because we had no sisters. We were just testosterone going through the roof, and mum would send us outside because it was so busy and so full on. So she'd just be like, right, outside. She'd lock us outside, rain, hail, or shine every now and again, and just say, go burn some energy. And we had the ideal childhood any four boys wanted, really. We had the Manawatu River there to go around and cause some trouble, not get into too much strife. We had the ability to let some of the energy out. And one thing that mum and dad kind of worked out pretty quickly that we weren't going to be tennis players because they locked us in the tennis court and we climbed out within pretty much an hour. And they realized we needed something a bit more physical, a bit more full on. And that's where sport came in for us, and especially rugby. We spent hours upon hours on the lawn with a rugby ball in our hand, just playing games that we made up, or playing touch, or playing tackle, bull rush, all those things that every country kid wants to do. And within no time, things started to happen pretty quickly. We left Opiki Primary School, went to intermediate, then on to high school. All of a sudden, we were playing rugby, and my oldest brother George started making a few representative sides, and the balance of schoolwork and rugby and sport really took off, and it was pretty full on. Fast forward a few years, all of a sudden, all four of us were playing professional rugby, and it just absolutely boomed. There was a couple of constant things in our life, from going from young kids to where we got to with our rugby was one thing, but and also the family farm and farming. So all my uncles and aunties are farmers or have been farmers in their previous lives, and the kind of the two key things that have always been a key thread throughout our lives: farming and footy. So many things cross over and relate. And as Chrissy said, I think it was 2015, 2016, got approached by Farmstrong to say, hey, look, this is what we're trying to do. Are you keen to get on board? And I was at a stage where I'd experienced a few things on the family dairy farm. Mum and dad had salmonella go through the dairy herd, and dad, with advice from the vet, was told, hey, look, you can't stop this spreading. The only way to do it is move the cows from paddock to paddock every hour. Anything left behind, you can't do anything. You can't save them. So you're better off to shoot them and, do that in a humane way to try save what hadn't been passed on through salmonella. So dad left the house quite early one day, got home. Mum said, hey, you're back early for smoko like you always come back for. Dad said, oh, I'm not here for smoker, I'm here for bullets. I'm actually out of bullets. And as it evolved, Dad had to shoot roughly 200 of the milking herd and about 180 of the calves because it got into the young stock as well. So the pressure that they were under in that time, even though they had my grandparents down the road, they had uncles and aunties, they had 30 years of experience on the farm, the pressure was just something I'd never experienced as a son, but also as a farmer's son. So mum and dad went completely different. Mum went silent. She didn't leave the house for 3 weeks. She didn't want to go down the road and see the pile of all this genetics the animals that they'd spent all this time and energy and money building up, lying in a pile, because she just didn't want to face that. Dad was the opposite. Dad, if anything, used to annoy us a little bit, ring us, hey, what are you up to? What's going on? The phone lines went quiet. Every time you'd ring home, you say, hey, how you going? He'd be like, oh yeah, I'm just so busy at the moment, and pretty much hang up. It wasn't until my little brother got home from the UK, he'd been over there on a gap year, and he rang all of us as brothers and said, hey, you need to get home and give mum a hand. And all of us said, why, what's happened? We didn't know what had happened because they weren't talking about it. Everything was shut up shop. So seeing that firsthand, the pressure that mum and dad were under, having the support around them, having the knowledge of being farmers for 30 years, that was one thing that definitely blew my mind. So I instantly thought, right, how do I help? And we couldn't do anything. It was actually just get home and support mum and dad and try get them to leave the farm for a bit, to take a bit of a break. But the one thing was, that kept going through my head, what happens if mum and dad were the second year into their farming career? There's no way they would have had the support or the knowledge to do it, and it would have been even worse. So that's what really kind of kicked me into gear to go, hey, Farmstrong, you know, I saw my parents go through a massive emotional stress, financial stress, and they came out the other side, but I could see how it wouldn't have been that way for a lot of people. So sharing that message, sharing the messages and the science, as Chrissy said before, is critical. And that's the cool thing about Farmstrong, is you have the science there, but you have the stories to back it up. I know the resources that Farmstrong have with the books for growers and for everything else. It just shows what routines, what habits, what way people get through pressure. And when I was in Canterbury, I saw the earthquake as well, and it's the same thing. Everyone lives on adrenaline for the first week or two, but then all of a sudden the habits and the way they've been living is not sustainable. So creating a couple of those things to really help yourself, your farm, your business, to get through is something that I've really enjoyed getting to know and understand. And hopefully I can today share a few things that I got to experience with playing professional rugby for a few years, and hopefully you guys got some good questions to draw some of that information out. Perfect. Thanks,
The
Shereen.
first question that's come up is, what advice would you give for managing pressure in a team setting?
Yep. The first one around a team setting, and the thing that I like about a team is you can rely on each other. And the teams that I've been a part of that have been the most successful is you help each other through those highs and lows. So whether it's an individual performance or a team performance, you're in it together. And I think the easiest way to kind of sum it up in my own mind is problem shared is a problem halved. And another little thing that definitely helped when things were going really well is we tried to have a saying there of whinge up, only whinge up. So never talk to someone about a problem that can't fix it or doesn't have the authority or the knowledge to fix it. And the example in rugby is a junior player, if they complain or whinge to someone else on the same level, it's not actually going to change anything. It's just going to create a negative impact. So it was always, hey, go to a senior player go to a captain go to the coach or manager. So always whinge up. And we found as soon as we started doing that, a lot of those little things that used to become massive were getting nipped in the bud straight away. So that was one thing that we definitely tried to do within a team environment, and it definitely helped us get where we wanted to get to.
Next question, are there any habits or routines you recommend to strengthen mental toughness?
Yep, there's heaps of different ways of approaching it. I was lucky enough to be a part of the 2010 All Blacks team, and they were at a really vulnerable stage. And me being the young kid showing up, I had all these experienced players who'd been to previous World Cups where we had not been successful, and the energy and time spent on mental toughness, the mental skills, the space of that was awesome. And I was very fortunate to have that as this first couple of years in the environment. Obviously, the 2011 World Cup was just around the corner, and the senior players stood up straight away and said, "Hey, look, we're not prepared enough mentally. We've got this massive challenge coming up. We need to work on it now." So they were vulnerable enough to admit that and actually be open and honest around it. Then things could be done around it, because everything that I heard before that time was, "Hey, it's just another game. There's no more pressure than a normal game." So they actually were running away from the pressure, and um, yet again, some little cries, some little sayings were created, and some of them were just copy pasted from different environments or different areas. And one of the first things that I definitely remember was, pressure is a privilege. So walking towards that pressure versus running and hiding from it. And I still remember sitting in a media conference, and they keep asking Richie, our captain, "Hey, it's been 24 years since the All Blacks have won a World Cup. The only time you've won it was at home. Can you live in New Zealand if you don't win the World Cup?" And Richie didn't actually answer the question. He just turned around and said, "Yeah, but imagine if we do win it. Imagine what it's going to do for the country. Imagine what it's going to do for our support." So he took a negative and turned it into a positive. And he did it really well and really skillfully. It was actually a really simple process. He just looked at what the positives were, um, was aware of the negatives and the pressures, but what it did is it allowed us to understand, right, this team environment, there are going to be pressures. What are they? How do we put a little process around it so we can actually change our wording, change our mindset to go forward? And I use that all the time now. So even if my kids come up to me and say, "Hey, look, I'm playing touch or tennis or dance, whatever, with the girls," and they say, "Hey, I'm really nervous about this." Well, you're nervous because you're excited, you want to do well. And all of a sudden, as soon as you put that positive spin on it, you can see them relax a little bit more and they're excited. And one thing I've always tried to do is walk towards the pressure rather than run away from and hide from it. So hopefully that's answered that question, but a couple of examples in there of what you can do. And I do reckon wording and what you say and how you say it is critical.
Great, that's excellent answer. Thanks, Sam. Next question. How do you train your mind to stay focused during chaos or high stakes situation?
Yep. Rugby is completely different to a lot of things. So farming, you spend your whole year getting ready to have one big sale, or if you're growing potatoes, you're busy, 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 but you don't actually know what's happening under the ground until you pull them all up and you weigh them and see what your yield is. So rugby was completely different in that way, because you're actually judged on every performance. So you're judged on the win or loss and the scoreboard. You can have the best week ever and still lose, and all of a sudden people say, "Oh, it's a terrible week." On the reverse, you can have a terrible week but perform on game day, and people say, "Oh, it's a great week." So what we actually did is we tried to break it down into, what do you need to do right now? So what do you need to do on a Monday afternoon for a Saturday game? So is it recovery? Is it learning what moves you've got to do? And then we actually just keep trying to narrow our focus all the way down to, what do you need to do in this moment? Where are you in your own mental state? Are you angry, aggressive, calm, over aroused, where you should be? And once we started talking that way, and over 15 years of a career, you start to understand not only yourself but also your teammates and how you can help them. But for myself, I always had a mental reset, and I used to use this when things were going really well, or also things not so well. And for me, I wanted to have something where people couldn't see, "Hey, this person is squirting water on his face. This person is slapping his leg to reset his mind." But I used to wiggle my toes, and I still do it now, even when I'm faced with something different, whether it's traffic, whether it's kids are probably not behaving as we'd love them to be. I wiggle my toes because it lets me get out of my mental loop. And the science behind it, as soon as you get outside your mental loop, you can refocus to what you need to. And the simple question I ask myself is, what do I need to do right now? So on the rugby field, it could be as simple as, right, I need to push in the scrum. I need to catch the kickoff. I could break it down to a very simple state of mind and what I needed to do right then. But that's where rugby's different, because it's 80 minutes and then you can go and work on everything from week to week. But I think the principle is exactly the same. What I've learned from talking to farmers, growers, the people that use that simple process of what do I need to do right now. I know Nigel and Chrissy and I, we've talked around it before, get your priority list, you write everything down and get it in order. It's the same thing. What do I need to do right now? I'd love to do all these 10 other jobs there, but what is the most important thing? I need to spray my crop. Right, organize that. Once that's done, move on to the next thing. But at the same time, understanding there's always going to be 1,000 things to do. So it's just the most important one.
Excellent. Yeah, very good point. Next question, which is sort of similar a little bit, is as fresh potato growers, things are tough with low prices and poor sales. How can growers keep a positive outlook? So keeping that positivity in the mindset.
Yeah, it's really challenging, isn't it? I think it can be challenging looking at it, something and going, okay, things going to bounce back. It's going to become easier. It's going to become more normal what we have to do. And in the rugby scene, they used to change the rules on us all the time. So what you could do one year, the next year you couldn't. You change from competition within a season. What you could do in this comp one week is not the same for that. The refs are looking at it. You just got to spend time and energy working out what that changes for you. But in saying that, it's understanding that there is always peaks and troughs and things. Things go up and things go down. Whether that's, meat prices, milk prices, prices of potatoes. I think as farmers and growers, and that's what I'm doing now, being a sheep and beef farmer in Hawke's Bay, my hands are definitely a lot harder than they used to be playing rugby. You've got to get through those highs and lows and work out what is the critical thing for you. And this is what I'm dealing with day to day now, and understanding that it is challenging, because what product used to be worth this amount it's double, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's higher, but everything seems to be going up. And that is putting a lot of stress on to people and what they're trying to achieve. For us, I think the thing that's definitely helped me is understanding, having a little bit of fat in the system. Easier said than done, but having those numbers a little bit lower than we would like them to be means that if they are a little bit higher, it's only a positive, rather than sailing so close to the edge that when things do change, it makes it so much harder. So that's what I've found out going from the rugby world to the farming world so far.
Cool, thank you for that. Next question, we've got a few of them lining up now. What are your thoughts around managing like work pressure and stress versus home and family time, and how do you switch off, like, so you're not taking your work pressure home?
Yeah, that's a tough one. My wife's about 3 meters away, and she'd love to probably answer that question for me. But it is hard to get that work-life balance. The biggest thing for us is, like, we've been back on the farm for about 7 months now, and I'm really keen to get 12 months through, so then I can say to her, hey, look, let's book a couple of days here and there where we know things are going to be less full on. And when things are busy, I can block it out and say, hey, look, this is where I've got to put the hammer down and go for it. So whether that's over 4 to 6 weeks, whether it's weaning calves or cows or whatever is in your system, you kind of know, okay, this is where I've just got to put the head down and work, but then also put some things in place to say, hey, look, when I get through these 5, 6 weeks, we'll go away, we'll go to the beach, we'll go do something else, we'll go out for dinner. And I think planning it in is a massive thing. And I found when I first started playing rugby, I was just full on rugby. I just wanted to do everything. I trained probably too much. I wanted it so much, but I actually, after a while, understood that I needed to step back to actually get better at what I was doing. I needed to have that balance of, I can't just be rugby the whole time. I needed to have times with my friends, my family, get away and do something socially and something different, whether it's going out for dinner, going hunting, whatever that's for you to work out. But for me, I found that strategy helped the most, because when I actually had better balance, even though I was working hard, I probably enjoyed what I was doing more. So when I was playing rugby, I was actually studying at Lincoln Uni at the time. So I came out with a Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Plant Science. So I really enjoyed that. Hey, I'm stepping away from the rugby thing, getting out the books and looking at real life examples and doing things that way. I don't think my rugby would have gone as good if I wasn't doing that study, and I don't think my study would have been as good if I wasn't doing rugby, because I had a real divide of what I was doing.
Yes, yeah, balance is so important in everyone's life, I think. Next question, you sort of touched on it just before. What strategies would you suggest for young professionals or students who are still developing their confidence?
Yeah, that's all of us. I'm still developing my confidence in the farm, having two full-time staff members here, and some days they say to me, "What are we doing today?" And I've got to be honest with them, and I say, "I don't know. What do you think?" Um, so it's actually just working out who you can lean on, who can you ask advice, and got some really good people surrounding us here. So leaning on them a little bit heavily at the moment, but as time goes, it's just going to go like this and change over. So it's working out who can help you, who you can ask pretty open questions with, because no question is a silly question in my mind. Um, yeah, so I think there's a lot of things there that can definitely help, and yeah, it's probably working out who is in that spot you want to be in, and trying to get alongside them and asking them, "Hey, look, can I ask you for some advice at some different stages?" Because I think it's a cool spot to be, being young, new to an environment, or new to um, a system, and going, right, how do I put my own spin on it? How do we make it better and evolve and grow?
Yeah, it's sort of that mentorship, isn't it? Um, okay, next question. What are two things you do every day to help your mental state through tough times?
Yeah, so the one thing that I got to do all the time was, exercise. Where now I don't have that time. But we used to get a calendar. Hey, look, this is when you're at training. This is what you got to do. So you didn't have to worry about finding time to stay fit and healthy. One thing that I need to get better at, being on the farm, I'm so excited to get stuck in and do a whole lot of things, but I've got to get better at actually making it more of a habit, because I've got so much to learn and do. I'm probably just jumping into the farming stuff straight away, but I need to probably prioritize some other things. But having three kids at home definitely allows me to spend some time with them, and that's always a great way to get away from the farm, even though we live on the farm, and just spend time with them and ask them questions around their day. It's pretty cool when you're driving home from school pickup, or just around on the farm and saying, "Hey, look, how's your day been? What have you been up to? What did you learn at school?" Um, and kind of goes from there. So it's pretty cool when you get to have those things that give me balance away from the busy lives that we're living.
Yeah, very good. Have you got any just like general tips on work-life balance, especially when it comes to trying to prevent burnout?
Um, I think the people closest to you will know if you're working hard enough or not hard enough. I know Hannah, my wife, she'll say to me if I've been, falling asleep at the couch at 8 o'clock every night, which I have been a little bit lately, because I've been up early and doing a whole lot of physical stuff. She'll just say to me at times, "Hey, look, you probably need to slow down a little bit," because that is the greatest risk you have. Everyone's so keen to do things and get things sorted. You need to be able to slow down and sometimes and actually take a break. But yeah, I think the people closest to you definitely can see it, and they definitely know when to step in and have a bit of a yarn.
Mm, thank you. Next question. Farming is 24/7 basically. It's a full-on job. How do you make time for your own personal health and well-being?
Yeah, everyone on a farm that works on the farm you look out the window, you see stock that shouldn't be in that paddock, or you see a job that needs to be done. I think the best thing that I've learned is actually being able to step away and go, right, let's go somewhere that's not on the farm. So whether it's go down to the playground, which is not too far from the kids' school, and actually spend some time down there, it actually means you're not on the farm looking at the jobs that need to be done. It allows me to go, right, I can get away here, because when you're not at the farm, sometimes it takes people, and I'm definitely one of them, a little bit of time to slow down and actually relax a little bit and not worry about what needs to be done. It doesn't mean that you can just walk away at any stage and go, oh, the farm will be fine. It's being able to pick and choose those times to get that better balance. And I think our farmhouse looks a little bit over to the neighbours. So I think that's a really good thing too, because I can't see most of the farm from the lounge or from the bedroom or anything. So it does allow me to kind of switch off a little bit. I do see a bit of gorse through the window, so I'd love to get down there and spray it. But when it's not your property, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually speaking to a grower a little while ago, and he was saying that one of the ways that he sort of just gets out of that mindset of what's going on with work is he just rings up a mate and says, let's just catch up for a coffee. And he just
Yep.
takes time out, and they just talk about everything and anything, and they just chill sort of. So he really looks forward to that. And it's a good way of sort of resetting and taking that break that we all need.
Yeah, no, I think that's an awesome idea, and I have heard of people just doing that as well, actually going to a mate's place that they know might be under a bit of pressure and just say, hey, look, I'm going to rock up. I'm going to bring around a cup of tea, a coffee, or a beer, or whatever it needs to be, glass of wine. And hey, look, I'm going to be here for half an hour, and we'll just have a yarn. And the first yarn shouldn't be, hey, how's the farm going, or how's the crop going? It should be around the kids or something different that is not related to that. I know surfing for farmers and growers has been awesome in that respect. My brother, who is down south, he lives in Sumner, so he's seen so many farmers spend an hour, hour and a half one way to go surfing for half an hour, and that's been a massive thing for them, because they spend that time driving there just kind of unwinding from the farm. They get there and they actually talk about a whole lot of things that are different. And obviously, surfing, some guys are experts, some guys are absolute novices. So they have heaps of fun, and they normally talk about surfing. And then when they drive home, they have time to set up the next day, set up the week of what they're doing. I know that's not for everyone, but I've seen and heard the real life examples of that, just getting away from the farm, having a catch up with different people, sometimes good mates, sometimes completely new, and it just allows them to reset to do what they need to do.
Yeah, I guess it's like when you go out fishing, you're just totally focused on fishing, you forget about everything else.
Yeah, no, I love going fishing too, but it's just finding the time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Next question. How important is quality of sleep to performance in sports and in farming?
Yeah, so sleep is one of those big things. You can't live without it. You've got to make sure you get enough of it, and at times it's challenging, because you wake up in the middle of the night going, "Oh, I need to do this and need to do that," and your mind starts racing again. The one thing that I've personally do quite a lot. My diary's just out of shot at the moment, but I've got lists written down everywhere, and I find when I write things down of a to-do list, or even just on a piece of paper, it definitely settles me down. So when I do get to sleep, I know that that list is there. That list is not going anywhere, but it's not going through my head. And for me, writing lists is a really good thing. As I said before, you can kind of take that list, work out what is actually a priority, what is a nice to have, what is a must do, and kind of you can rearrange that list. But what I found, that definitely helps my sleep. Um, they always said to us in the rugby scene that when you're sleeping, that's when you're fully recovering. So your muscles are recovering, you're mentally recovering, your energy levels. So it's working out how to get that. We used to have it in the All Black environment. They would, um, I don't tell too many people this. Some people don't think it's that good, but I really enjoyed it and I used the most of it. They used to put it in their calendar like a power nap. So some people would just stop, lie down on the bed for 2 minutes, set an alarm, and that would be enough for them to go again. Other people would use it a little bit longer and use 20 minutes. So then they'd do more at the end of each day. And for myself, I found that really good. And yet again, going back and looking at what my father used to do, I remember after lunch, he'd been up early, the cow shed, doing whatever else. Lunchtime, he'd have a big lunch, and then I don't know how he used to do it, he'd have like a 2 minute snooze. For me, I'd have to set an alarm, but he never did. And after 2 minutes, he'd then wake up and go, right, let's go again. And he just used that 2 minutes to reset, to go, right, here's some energy, let's go and get stuck into the next thing. But that 2 minutes was just, yet again, getting better sleep, allowed him to be more effective on the farm. So whether that was less injuries, less accidents, having a clearer mind. I think one thing everyone forgets about probably is hydration. Everyone talks around sleep, but hydration's another massive one that I think just walking around with a drink bottle in your hand is such a good thing. As Chrissy takes a bit of water.
Absolutely. Yeah, sleep it needs to be, you need to make it a priority. It is very important. Next question. What advice would you give someone who is new to the industry and coming into like tough times and trying to sort of stay positive and yeah, starting on their journey?
Yeah, that journey started. What a cool place to be. And I know it can be challenging straight away. There's always going to be, the learning curve is so high. But what I would do if I was in their situation, I would try to find someone to get some advice from that had been in the industry for a wee bit of time and doing really well. So I'd try to find that person and be able to understand, can I have a couple of conversations and actually put it in your calendar and say, hey, look, every first of each month, I'll go and have a cup of tea or a coffee with them. If it costs you a muffin and a scone, well, so be it. But that knowledge there is going to be massive. And sometimes it's just chewing the fat. I think a lot of people used to do it at the classic New Zealand pub. But what you can do now is you can get information from anywhere. So whether it's podcasts, whether it's on, on the internet, whether it's on, um, in a book, there's so many different ways to get information now. But I think having that person, you can cut through all the information, just go directly to that key question you have is really critical. I love going to people that are older than me because they've just had more winters on the farm. They've had more highs and lows, so they probably understand it a bit better. It doesn't mean that you just go to those people. Some of the young, new age people that are dealing with new technology and stuff, it's pretty cool to have a look and a yarn to them too, because they're changing some of these cool things that we've always done, and they're actually challenging the norm and saying, hey, look, we can be more efficient here, we can be more productive, and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's that mentorship, getting a right mentor that you can work with, as well as getting a group of people like your friends or
Yeah,
people that are in the industry, a group of peers that are sort of facing the same situation and just talking it through with them.
yeah, that's exactly right. I
Okay.
think with that too, sometimes you can look outside your field as well. I know as a rugby team, sometimes we'd go to military stuff, or we looked at a lot of high pressure stakes. So you think of surgeons. If they get this wrong, this person might lose an arm or leg, or worst case scenario, it pass away. So what were their techniques? How did they do it? And a lot of it came back to communication, clear, direct as an order. And that doesn't mean you live in that space the whole time. You walk around like a sergeant of telling and directing at people. But in high pressure situations, that's what they needed to do. And I would say one thing to you, repeat it back to me, so there was um, no mistake had. And all of a sudden you're looking at, okay, how are we operating on a field, right? So am I saying this is what we're doing? Are you repeating it? Are you agreeing? We don't have time to discuss it. So the difference between, hey, can you please take a step? You're offside, versus step offside versus step. Your tone of your voice, So all that detail that came into it after, once you kind of realized, okay, how do I get this message across? How can I be better at it?
Hmm. Great. Next question. We all have days where nothing goes right. Yes, we do. How do you deal with stuff ups and setbacks and reset mentally?
So exactly as I said before, so stop, wiggle my toes. What do I need to do right now? We had an example of that the other day here on the farm. We were ripping a couple of paddocks because we were trying to rip up the pan to get a little bit of water to leave in the winter, but then have it stay a little bit more in the summer. The water pipe, which was the water main running half the farm's troughs, within about 10 minutes, we had three geysers, I think they're called, just going straight out the roof. And um, standing there going, okay, what are we going to do? Didn't know how big the pipe was, didn't know if we had any fittings to fix it. It was a Friday afternoon. Okay, so what do I have to do now? So I stood there, wiggled my toes. Okay, turn the water off. And I know that's a simple thing to say, but right, went up to the water tank, turned that off so it didn't drain the two 10,000 litre tanks of water at the top of the hill. So did that. Okay, it's still running. Right, go turn the lead off. So right, stop the water. What do we do now? Okay, right, ring the person that put it in. How big's the pipe? Don't know. Okay, right, get down there with a shovel, work out how big the pipe is. So it's just stage by stage by stage by stage. Yes, ideally they wouldn't have hit the water pipe and it should have been 600 deep, not 400 as it was. But you just got to deal with it and move on. And the easiest thing to do is just going, right, how do I reset? What do I do right now? Um, Rang my wife and said, hey, look, it's 5 o'clock now. I'll be home for dinner probably at 6, not 5:30 with the kids. So I walked in there covered in mud and all that stuff. But at least she knew what was going on rather than them waiting and going, kids getting hungry, grumpy, etc. So just trying to nip it in the bud straight away and go from there. And again, it's just a simple process to follow. At times, it is challenging because there's multiple things happening at once, and we all know what could happen in New Zealand with the weather, whether it's a cyclone or a heavy frost at the wrong time, snow, etc. So it's just working out what you can do and what is the priority and go from there.
Yeah, I guess it's learning lessons as well, learning from those experiences, and then if the same situation happens again, you've got that knowledge and you're building up your own knowledge and understanding.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah. Next question. We can all be our worst critic. How do you shut down that inner critic?
Yeah, I've walked off after a game and people are going, "Oh, you played an outstanding game," and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is, "Oh, I missed that tackle, I dropped that ball, or I gave away that penalty." Sometimes it's actually just forgetting about those things, or not forgetting about it. It's just actually putting them to the side and going, "Hey, look, in general, we had a pretty good day," and that's really hard because we all have the inner critic inside of us, but it's working out, is this inner critic helping me right now or is it actually hindering me? And I find if you ask that question, normally it'll answer itself straight away. Um, and generally, you might have made 15 tackles but missed one on a rugby field. Okay, what does that look like? Why did you miss it? What's the cause and effect of it? Okay, I was the covering guy that wasn't even there to make that tackle. It should have been someone else, but I've missed him as a covering tackle. Okay, so that's shown really good effort. Okay, so that's something you can live with. Whereas if it's a pure technical thing, you can go work on that as well. So sometimes it's just putting those little things into perspective and working out why they've happened, and how can you work on it so hopefully it doesn't happen again.
Sounds good. Um, we all need to vent it sometimes. Tell us about how you turn off that venting tap.
Yeah, Chrissy and Nige have heard me talk about this 100 times, and my wife, who's snuck away at the moment, she'll laugh when I start speaking this way. But if you're going to have a vent, turn the tap all the way on and get it out. You curse and swear and just get it out. So whether it's to a loved one or an employee, but you again whinge up. Sometimes it's the dog or the tractor or whatever it is. But once you've had your vent, turn the tap off fully. The worst thing you do is just let it drip and it's just drips, drips, drips. All of a sudden, it's an hour you've been venting. It's the whole day. It's the week. It's the month. That's not good for you or for anyone. So I think if you need a vent, open the tap and get it out and full on have the vent. Obviously, you're not going to do it to the wrong person. So venting up is what I'm saying, whinging up, and then be part of the solution. So another thing that some of the great players I was lucky enough to play with, Dan Carter, had a saying. He goes, "Look, don't tell me what's happening. Tell me what you want me to do. So don't say the 12's running into spot tackle me. Tell me to kick the ball, run the ball, or pass the ball. Tell me what you want, not what's happening. So give me the solution, not the problem." And I think that's a really, really nice way to do it, especially under pressure. You don't have time to give all the information. It's just, I'm going to say this, and he should trust you, he or she should trust you just to do it. And I think when you're in a really good spot, especially in a team environment, that's happening all the time. And I think that's a really nice way to, a nice thing to aim to get to, is where everyone's trusting each other because you've seen something and this is a solution, and you're not actually worried about the problems.
Yeah, great answer. Sort of, you mentioned about Dan Carter, and this next question sort of refers to that. How have you tapped into the wisdom of others during your rugby career and now that you're back into farming?
Yep. So farming, I'm annoying Dad. Dad's probably getting sick of the phone calls that I'm ringing and asking one question, and then half an hour later, he's like, "I've got to go." I'm like, "Oh, I've just got a couple more questions." But now got some really good support around us in the farm, and we knew we needed that. So we've gone from a different world back into a world that we grew up in, but it's different when you're growing up on a farm and you might, go get the cows in every now and again for milking, but you're not actually washing the plant. You're not actually doing all those full-on jobs that are part of it. Going from a dairy farm upbringing to now sheep and beef, totally different again. So really enjoying having those mentors in our lives to lean on and bounce things off. But rugby was exactly the same. Growing up in Manawatu, had an opportunity to go to Canterbury, where mum's from. So really nice to connect up with the other side of the family. But one of the other reasons I really wanted to go there was there was 5 All Black locks down there ahead of me when I went down to the academy. So I tried to talk to Brad Thorne. I tried to talk to Isaac Ross, Ross Filippo, Chris Jack, and James Porthurst. I tried to take all their strengths and none of their weaknesses. So I obviously didn't try to do it in a cynical way, but when I watched them play, I saw them operate. I said, "Oh, okay, Thorny, he was big and strong and physical in the gym. Okay, right, I'm going to train like him." Chris Jack was very clever around the line out, so I'd watch and ask him questions around what was he looking at to call that option, etc. So I just tried to take all their strengths and put them into my own game and still be me, but I just wanted to, take the good things and do it like that. And it was the same with Dan, Richie, Owen Franks, Kieran Reed. So like all those guys that was playing alongside, same age, older, etc. Just tried to take on what they were doing, and it's no different in the world. There's people out there that are doing some amazing things, whether it's around helping people, whether it's around the systems that they use. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can copy paste and adapt it to suit you.
Yeah, well, that sort of happens generally in life. You sort of see what others are doing, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm going to implement that into my life.
Yep.
So it's yeah, seeing what's out there, talking to people and learning from them, and then using that in your own personal situation. And you can bring that into the farm or into rugby, whatever it is, whatever aspect in your life. Okay, next question. It's got, Sam, I like your perspective on the fact that your career, whether it's rugby, farming, or something else, doesn't define you as a person. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yep. I saw a clip the other day saying 2011 we won by 1 point. We had 3 parades as All Blacks through different cities, 4 parades I think it was, and the country went crazy. 2023 we lost by 1 point, and we didn't get the parades. We didn't get all these things that come with it. It was pretty much arrive home and everyone kind of just dismantled and went back into their own lives. But what I'm kind of getting to is winning or losing doesn't change who you are. It doesn't mean your rugby career or your personal life is a success or not. There's so many different things that make you up as a person. So for me, I'm a son, I'm a father, Lincoln University graduate, rugby player, now a farmer. I'm also an uncle, and all these other things that make up who I am. And the cool thing about all that is hopefully all of those parts actually help improve and define who I am. So I think that's one thing I've always kind of looked at, and it's a pretty cool question that's come through, because even though you're a potato grower or you are growing squash or pumpkins or whatever it is, it doesn't define who you are. There's so many things that go into your life that sum up what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. So that's the way I've always looked at it. And having three brothers that played professional rugby and all played for New Zealand at some stage was a really nice way to keep us all grounded and pretty humbled, because if someone stuck their head out too far, the tall poppy syndrome, but it's even worse with brothers, especially in a rural sector, that come in and they'll cut you off at the knees pretty quickly. So I think that's a cool way we've all ended staying pretty true to who we always were, and rural country people that love footy is way to probably sum us up as brothers and a family.
I guess we all have our labels, but we're so much more, you know.
Of course we are.
There's so many aspects to a person. So it's, yeah, we are so much more than the labels that people give us or we give ourselves. So
Of
yeah.
course we are, yeah.
Being a good listener doesn't always come naturally, but it's a skill that can be easily learnt. A lot of us jump in and offer solutions rather than just listening. What role does active listening play in your approach to communication, and how do you practice it?
The best advice I got given was count. So in your head, count to 20. So if you ask a question of, say, hey Sri, how are you doing today? Let you answer. So if you answer, you say, hey, I'm
Right.
feeling great. But then you can actually follow it up with the same question again, but how are you really feeling? And you just start counting in your head. All of a sudden, you get to a stage where that person will actually give you the proper answer, the answer that is how they're actually really feeling. Because we as humans, as people, we're actually pretty lazy. If most people say, how are you doing? Oh yeah, I'm awesome, thanks. But not until someone slows you down and actually goes, but how are you really doing? And actually takes that time, and the active listening skill is a hard thing to do. Um, but yeah, if you take the time, you can actually get some really good answers from people and actually get to where you need to be. And I know for myself, I've had some great people um, ask me those questions and actually get to what is the problem, what is potentially the solution. Normally, you know the solution in your own head around what needs to be done. And in a team environment, having some senior players that are really experienced definitely helps, because they can excel the learning and excel the team culture pretty quickly. So I know that's awesome if you're setting goals, if you're just trying to improve in something, having those people that can really dive deep into what needs to be done, but at the same time, keeping it really simple is nice too.
Yeah, I guess from my experience as well, like looking at a person, like looking at them in their eyes, and just like you can sort of see how they're doing a little bit. Sometimes um, I've been stressed, and someone's come up to me and go, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, good, fine." You sort of brush it off, and they've gone, "You actually look stressed. Are you all right? What's going on?" So they've actually looked at me and realized that things aren't going like good, as I've said, because I'm trying to brush it off. So yeah, taking the time to notice a person and then listening in and asking those questions does make a
Yeah, I
difference.
think timing with that's critical as well. Like if someone asks you, how you really doing? and you're right in the middle of something, and you're, getting a truck out the gate because it's full of potatoes or it's full of lambs, it's probably not the right timing. It's creating that time to go, right, we have an opportunity here. We have 5 to 10 minutes to actually just ask that question and actually let you answer under your own steam. I find that is the best way to do it, rather than, hey, we're right in a busy spot here, we've got to just carry on a little bit. So timing is a massive thing as well.
Mm, exactly. Okay, we're down to our last questions because we've got only a couple of minutes left. You're big on setting goals. Do you want to talk us through that, like what that's about and how we can help like implement it into our own lives?
Yep. So goal setting for me was something that I was introduced to at Fielding High School. We had our first 15 coach was the hostel manager, Mr. Rick Francis. And I thought this happened at every school. And from what I've talked about, it's not quite the case. So he used to make us as third formers and in the hostel stand in front of everyone and read out 2 goals. We had to have or sometimes it was 2 or 3 goals. You had to have maybe 2 at school and 1 on the sporting field, what you wanted to achieve. And standing up in front of your peers and actually saying what you want to achieve held us accountable straight away. So if you said, hey, I want to have a tidy dorm, make my bed every day, and at school, I want to get above 70% in my English exam, for example. And on the sporting field, I want to make the senior A netball side and play in half the games. So it didn't matter what it was, but the cool thing about it is he challenged us to just go a little bit further than we thought we were capable of. So if you said, hey, look, I want to play in the A's netball side or basketball side or rugby side or whatever it was, he would challenge you, be like, why not make man on 2B? Or why not play? And it was just always a little bit further, a little bit higher. And numbers was something that he always liked because it was easy to judge and work out, hey, have I achieved this goal or not? So I took that from third form all the way through school. When I left school, went to university, had goals for uni, goals for rugby. I still use it now. I have goals all for the farm, some of the rugby coaching that I'm doing. And the cool thing is numbers, you can actually look at it and go, hey, did I achieve that? Did I not? And then there's a whole lot of other things that kind of layer through around my goal setting is how do you take other people with you? How do you make sure that your goal is not sacrificing the group? So I'm going to get the saying wrong. Making the tide rise so every boat rises versus just trying to promote yourself. So that was one thing that I spent a lot of time with myself, but also the teams I was involved in, and working out what goals we were after, rather than just saying, hey, we want to win. What does it look like? What actually layers underneath it? But yet again, keeping it nice and simple. But yeah, spent heaps of time on that and really enjoy that goal setting scenario.
Perfect. Well, thank you so, so much for your time today. We really appreciate and sharing all your knowledge and wisdom with us. It's very much appreciated, and I'm sure on behalf of the potato industry, we've learned quite a bit from your wisdom. So yeah, thanks so much. Chrissy, do you want to close it off?
Yeah, just a couple of things from Farmstrong's perspective. We have a fortnightly toolbox tip that we send out, which you can sign up to. So it's just a practical, actionable, easy to implement tip that lands in your inbox every couple of weeks. So you can just text your name to 8515 and you'll just get automatically signed up. So a great way to stay in touch with Farmstrong and some of that great information that we share. A lot of the tips are from farmers and Sam too, of course. Also, just a reminder as well that if you haven't got your hands on one of our Live Well, Farm Well books or the Getting Through book that we did in response to the cyclones and floods of 2023, just email info@Farmstrong and we'll be able to send you out a copy. They're freely available, and it's a fantastic resource with, again, a heap of information in there. So yeah, that's it. Thanks everyone. Thanks for dialing in, and thank you again, Cherie and Sam. That was brilliant. Really enjoyed listening to that and getting to just listen rather than having to host. So well done.
No, easy as no, thanks, Sheree. And anyone on the call, I'd love some potato growing tips. I had to do the family competition this year, but I ran it so I didn't have to grow. But I've been kicked out from the running it, so I'm actually allowed to grow my potatoes this year. So fingers crossed. You guys send heaps of information. I can have the biggest ones and win.